Welcome back to the deep dive. Looks like you're ready to unlock some serious brain power.
Yeah, about that.
You sent over some really cool sources on memory improvement.
11 techniques.
11, wow, okay. From exercise and sleep to mnemonics, turmeric, even novelty.
All kinds of things can boost memory, that's for sure.
I gotta say, I'm pretty intrigued by this memory palace technique. Storing memories like groceries in your mind, who knew?
It's amazing what the brain can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's really fascinating about this deep dive is how it shows that memory's way more than just memorizing facts.
Okay, so let's jump in. First up, something I definitely need to work on: exercise. We all know it's good for our bodies.
But what about our brains?
Right. How does moving our bodies actually translate to better brain power?
Well, when you exercise, especially aerobic stuff like a brisk walk or swimming, your blood flow increases.
Okay, so more blood pumping.
Yeah, which delivers more oxygen and nutrients to your brain, and it's crucial for those neurons to be healthy.
So it's like, what? Giving my brain cells a power smoothie?
I like that. And a key ingredient in that smoothie is BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
BDNF, okay.
Exercise stimulates its release, and BDNF basically acts like fertilizer for your brain. It helps those neurons grow and develop, particularly in the hippocampus.
Hold on, hippocampus? That rings a bell.
It should. It's your brain's memory central.
Ah, that's right, the memory center. So when I'm exercising, I'm basically investing in my memory headquarters.
Precisely. Studies even show that moderate exercise like brisk walking, just 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week.
30 minutes, that's not bad. Way better than training for a marathon.
Right. And even that amount can have big positive effects on your hippocampus.
Good to know. What if I add some strength training into the mix? Would that help my brain even more?
You're thinking in the right direction. It seems like combining aerobic and strength training has this awesome combo effect on brain health.
Awesome combo. Interesting.
We don't know exactly why, but it probably involves a few things. Better blood flow, those growth factors we talked about, and even the mental challenge of coordinating movements.
So basically, it keeps my brain engaged and flexible.
Exactly.
Love it. Okay, moving on to something else I'm a big fan of. Sleep. I always feel better after a good night's rest, but tell me, how does sleep actually work to improve memory?
It's much more than just resting your brain. Think of your brain like a supercomputer.
Okay.
It's processing tons of data all day. And sleep is when it finally gets to organize and store everything. Those fleeting short-term memories get transformed into long-term memories.
So while I'm snoozing, my brain is busy filing away memories. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how that works.
So this filing happens during different sleep stages. In non-REM sleep.
Non-REM.
Yeah. Your brain replays recent events, strengthens those neural connections, and basically moves information from short-term to long-term storage.
Interesting.
Then comes REM sleep, where things get creative.
Oh, so that's where the dreams come in.
Could be. Your brain takes those new memories and mixes them with your existing knowledge. It's like weaving everything into this tapestry of long-term memories. Or you could even say, it's like your brain editing a film, cutting out the boring parts and adding special effects to the important stuff.
Wow, that's a great way to put it. So it's not just about how much sleep we get, but also the quality of that sleep, right?
Definitely. What are some things you do before bed?
Well, I usually dim the lights, maybe take a warm bath, read a book sometimes.
You see, you're already doing it. Those pre-sleep rituals are signaling your brain to wind down and prepare for quality sleep.
Makes sense. What about those quick power naps everyone's talking about? Are they really as beneficial as people say?
You know, there's actually a lot of research supporting the power of naps. Just a short nap, like 20 to 30 minutes.
Just a little refresh.
Yeah, exactly. It can improve your alertness, help you learn better, and even boost your memory recall.
Okay, I'm sold. Time to schedule some nap time into my day. Next up, we've got mindfulness and meditation. This one feels a little different. I'm open to it, but how exactly does practicing mindfulness translate into better memory?
Mindfulness, like meditation, has some amazing brain-boosting benefits. For one, it's been shown to actually increase gray matter density in brain regions associated with memory.
Wait, increase gray matter. That sounds good, but what exactly does that mean?
It's like strengthening those mental muscles responsible for processing and storing memories. And guess what? One of those areas is the hippocampus, our old friend.
So more gray matter equals better memory function.
You could say that. Gray matter is where the thinking happens. It's processing information, making decisions, forming memories. So increasing gray matter density in key areas is like giving your brain a hardware upgrade.
I'll take that upgrade. But isn't meditation more about stress reduction? How does that tie into memory?
That's the other key benefit. Chronic stress is a major memory killer. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol, a hormone that can actually damage the hippocampus.
So stress literally hurts my brain's memory center.
It can. Mindfulness combats this by reducing stress and lowering those cortisol levels, essentially protecting your brain.
Okay, so it's like a 2-for-1 deal. Boosting memory capacity and protecting the brain from stress. I'm starting to see the appeal. Is there any specific type of mindfulness practice that's best for memory?
Any type can help. Even short bursts of mindfulness can make a difference. Just 10, 15 minutes a day of focused breathing or guided meditation.
That's doable.
Right. And there's so many apps and online resources available. Find what works for you.
Awesome. I'm going to explore those resources for sure. Now on to something that sounds a bit more like brain training. Cognitive exercises. Do those brain training apps and puzzles actually live up to the hype?
Well, some claims might be a little exaggerated, but there's definitely value in challenging your brain. Puzzles, memory games, cognitive tasks.
Make my brain sweat a little.
Yeah. And that mental workout triggers what we call neuroplasticity.
Okay, hold on. Neuroplasticity.
Yeah, it's your brain's incredible ability to change and adapt throughout your life. Your brain's not static. It's constantly rewiring itself.
So basically, it's forming new connections and strengthening existing ones based on our experiences.
Exactly.
So when I challenge my brain with those cognitive exercises, I'm actually making my brain more adaptable.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to brain training games. Learning new skills, like playing a musical instrument or speaking a new language, also triggers neuroplasticity. Anything that pushes you outside your comfort zone and requires you to learn and adapt strengthens your brain.
I love that. So it's never too late to learn new tricks. Okay, thinking about all this brain training is making me hungry. Let's talk about fuel. How does diet play into the memory equation? Is there a magic brain-boosting food I should stock up on?
A magic food. While there isn't one magic bullet, what you eat has a huge impact on your brain. It's like providing your brain with the best building blocks. And for that, a balanced diet is key. Lots of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats.
Okay, sounds familiar.
One dietary pattern that consistently stands out for brain health is the Mediterranean diet.
Oh, the Mediterranean diet. Always hear good things about that. Isn't that all about fresh produce, olive oil, and fish?
You got it. And those foods contain specific nutrients that are especially good for your brain and memory. Take omega-3 fatty acids, for example.
Omega-3s. Okay.
They're found in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines, and they're super important for brain cell structure and function. Research suggests they can actually improve memory and protect against cognitive decline.
So I should be eating more fish.
It couldn't hurt.
Okay, noted. What about antioxidants? I've heard those are good for brain health.
They are. Think of antioxidants like tiny warriors protecting your brain cells from damage.
Damage from what?
Well, there are these things called free radicals.
Free radicals.
Basically, unstable molecules that can cause inflammation and cell death.
Yikes, that doesn't sound good.
Not at all. Antioxidants protect you from those free radicals. And luckily, they are found in delicious foods like berries and even dark chocolate.
Sign me up. Blueberries and dark chocolate. That's my kind of brain food. What else should I be looking out for?
Let's see. B vitamins, especially B6, B12, and folate, are essential too.
B vitamins, got it.
They help lower levels of something called homocysteine. Too much homocysteine can be bad news for your brain.
Okay, so lower homocysteine, check. Where can I find these B vitamins?
Leafy greens, legumes, fortified grains, they've got you covered. Oh, and we can't forget about vitamin D.
Vitamin D. Right. Important for bones too, right?
Exactly. But it's crucial for brain health as well, and might even help protect against cognitive decline. You can get it from sunlight, fatty fish, and fortified foods too.
Gotcha. Now, last question about diet, and this is a big one for me. How important is hydration for memory? I'm really bad at remembering to drink enough water throughout the day.
Staying hydrated is crucial. Think of water as the lubricant that keeps your brain's gears turning smoothly.
Okay, so even mild dehydration can mess with my memory.
It can. It impacts your cognitive performance, making it tougher to concentrate, learn, and recall information.
Point taken. Water bottle, here I come. All right, so to sum it up, I should eat lots of those brain-boosting foods, cut back on the junk, and make sure I'm drinking enough water.
You got it.
Perfect. Now I'm ready to dive into those targeted memory techniques, like mnemonic devices. I've heard of them, but I'm not sure I totally get how they work. Can you explain it simply?
Mnemonic devices are essentially memory shortcuts. They help you encode information in a way that makes it easier to remember.
So like tricks?
You could say that. They often involve using vivid imagery, associations, rhymes, or acronyms. Think of it as creating memorable hooks for the information.
Okay, that makes sense. Like, I remember using the acronym HOMES to memorize the Great Lakes in school. Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior.
Perfect example. See, instead of remembering 5 separate names, you created one word that triggers the whole list.
So it's like a shortcut for my brain.
Exactly. It's like creating a mental file folder with a clear label.
I like that. So besides acronyms, are there other types of mnemonic devices?
Absolutely. Visualization techniques are super powerful. Instead of just memorizing facts or lists, you create a vivid picture in your mind, or even a whole story related to the information.
So make it visual. That seems way more fun than just trying to memorize something.
And more effective. It engages more of your senses and creates stronger connections in your brain, making the memory stronger and easier to access.
So is that memory palace technique I mentioned earlier a form of visualization?
Yes. The memory palace, also known as the method of loci, has been used for centuries. It involves associating information with specific locations in a place you know well.
So instead of just remembering a grocery list, I could mentally place each item in a different room of my house.
Exactly. When you need to remember the list, you take a mental walk through your house, picking up each item along the way.
I'm definitely going to try that one. Okay, switching gears now, let's talk about stress. We all know it's bad for us, but how does it affect our memory specifically? Is it just a matter of being too distracted to remember things when we're stressed?
It's a lot deeper than that. Chronic stress is a real problem for your brain, especially for the hippocampus.
The hippocampus again, huh?
It's important. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol, which in small doses is actually helpful.
So a little stress is okay.
Right, but prolonged exposure to high levels of cortisol due to chronic stress can actually shrink the hippocampus, impairing your memory.
So stress shrinks my memory center. That's scary. What can I do to protect my brain from that?
The good news is there are many effective ways to manage stress. We already talked about exercise.
Yeah, exercise is a good stress reliever.
Exactly. Mindfulness practices like meditation can also be incredibly helpful. And don't underestimate the power of simple things like spending time in nature, hobbies you enjoy, or just connecting with loved ones.
So it's not about avoiding stress completely, which is impossible. It's about having healthy ways to cope with it.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Okay, let's move on to social engagement. I know that loneliness can be bad for cognitive function, but how does being social actually boost memory?
Social interaction is like a full workout for your brain. Meaningful conversations, group activities, strong relationships, they all stimulate a wide range of cognitive processes.
Okay, like what kind of processes?
Everything from understanding language and interpreting social cues to recalling memories and solving problems. All of this stimulation strengthens your neural connections and keeps your brain sharp.
So it's not just about feeling good and having friends, it's about keeping our brains active and engaged.
Right, and studies show that people who are more socially engaged have a lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia.
Wow, that's encouraging. But what about those of us who are a little more introverted or just have limited social opportunities?
Volunteering is a great option. It allows you to connect with others while making a difference. Joining clubs or groups focused on shared interests is another good one.
Makes sense.
And even something as simple as regular phone calls or video chats with friends and family can go a long way.
Okay, some good advice there. Next up, we've got a topic that feels super relevant in today's world. Focus. With so many distractions all around us, how does all this information overload impact our memory?
Our brains are wired to notice new and changing things.
It's how we survive, right?
Exactly. It's a survival mechanism. But in today's world, we're constantly bombarded with information. A lot of it's unimportant, but our brains are still trying to process it all.
So we're in overdrive, trying to keep up.
You got it. And that can lead to mental fatigue, trouble concentrating, and memory problems. It's like trying to have a conversation in a really noisy room.
So our brains are basically getting lost in the noise.
Pretty much. And while we can't completely eliminate distractions, we can train our brains to be more focused.
Okay, how? More brain training.
Well, mindfulness practices like meditation can help strengthen your attention muscle.
Attention muscle. I like that.
And it's also important to minimize distractions in your environment. Turn off notifications, create a dedicated workspace, schedule blocks of time for focused work. All of these can make a big difference.
I'm hearing you loud and clear. No more multitasking for me. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about spaced repetition. I've heard this is a super effective memory technique, but I'm not sure I fully understand how it works. Can you break it down for me?
Spaced repetition takes advantage of the way our brains forget.
So we're using forgetting to our advantage.
Exactly. Essentially, we forget information over time, but each time we see that information again, we forget it a little slower.
So it's about timing.
Yes. Spaced repetition is all about strategically timing those reminders
Reminders of what?
of the information you're trying to learn. The more you see it, the longer you remember it. It's a very effective method for learning things like languages, memorizing facts, or mastering any subject.
I've heard about this for language learning, but I didn't realize it was applicable to anything.
Oh yeah, you can use it for anything. It's really helpful. Yeah.
Definitely going to have to try this spaced repetition thing. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground today, from exercise and sleep to mindfulness and mnemonic devices, and even how what we eat and drink affects our brain power. I feel like I've learned so much already. Can you give me a quick recap of the key takeaways so far?
Absolutely. The main takeaway is that your memory isn't set in stone. You can actively improve it through lifestyle choices, habits, and mental practices.
So it's all about taking control and being proactive.
Exactly.
I love that. Is there one final thought you want to leave our listeners with today, something to keep them thinking about how to improve their memory and brain power?
I'd say pick one or two of the techniques we've discussed today and start incorporating them into your life. Pay attention to how they make you feel, how they affect your energy, your focus, and your memory. It's a journey of self-discovery.
That's great advice. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those brains sharp. We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into the fascinating world of memory enhancement. Until then, stay curious.
So we've talked about all these memory techniques, but how do they actually work? Like, what's going on in our brains?
Let's get microscopic. I'm ready to go deeper. What's happening at the cellular level when we exercise, for example? We talked about blood flow and BDNF.
Right. But let's zoom in on those brain cells. Picture them as tiny factories, always buzzing with activity. They need a constant supply of fuel and resources.
Okay, so what's their fuel?
Glucose, mainly. It's the brain's primary energy source. When you exercise, your heart pumps more blood to your brain, delivering a surge of oxygen and nutrients, including glucose.
So it's like giving those brain cell factories a power boost.
Exactly. And exercise also stimulates those growth factors we talked about, like BDNF. They act like tiny construction crews, repairing and strengthening those brain cells, especially in the hippocampus.
So it's not just about maintaining those brain cells, it's about making them stronger and building new ones.
You got it. And the benefits go beyond the hippocampus, too. Exercise improves blood flow throughout the brain, which basically means better communication between different brain regions.
It's like upgrading the whole brain's infrastructure.
Precisely. Now, how about sleep?
Yes, sleep. We talked about how important it is for consolidating memories, but what's actually happening in those brain cells while we're snoozing?
Think of sleep as your brain's overnight shift. It's when the real work gets done. While you're asleep, your brain is busy replaying the day's events, making those neural connections stronger, transferring information from short-term to long-term storage.
So even though I'm resting, my brain is working overtime to make sure I remember things. What happens if we don't get enough sleep? Does our brain just hit delete on those memories?
Not necessarily delete, but without enough sleep, that consolidation process gets messed up. The connections aren't as strong, and it becomes harder to recall those memories, like trying to open a corrupted file on your computer.
The information's there, but it's hard to access.
Exactly. And consistently skimping on sleep can have some pretty bad consequences, like shrinkage of the hippocampus. It's not worth the risk.
I hear you. Sleep is crucial. Okay, what about diet? How do those brain-boosting nutrients we talked about actually affect those tiny brain cells?
Well, think of nutrients as providing both the building blocks and the fuel for brain cells. They need both to function properly.
Makes sense.
For example, omega-3 fatty acids are crucial components of cell membranes, those protective barriers that surround each brain cell.
So omega-3 strengthen those barriers, making them more resilient.
Exactly. Now, what about those antioxidants? Remember we talked about how they protect brain cells from damage?
Yeah, like little bodyguards, but how do they actually do that?
They neutralize harmful free radicals.
Free radicals. Remind me what those are again.
Unstable molecules that can damage cells, cause inflammation, and even contribute to aging. They're a natural byproduct of metabolism, but things like stress, pollution, and a poor diet can make them worse.
Got it. So antioxidants are like a cleanup crew for those free radicals.
Exactly. Now, B vitamins, they're essential for all sorts of brain functions, like producing neurotransmitters, which are the chemical messengers that allow brain cells to talk to each other.
So they keep the communication lines open.
Yes. They also help protect brain cells from damage and keep the myelin sheath healthy.
Hold on, myelin sheath, what's that?
It's a fatty coating that insulates nerve fibers and allows those signals to travel efficiently.
Okay, so B vitamins are basically keeping things running smoothly in the brain. Got it. What about vitamin D?
Well, it's important for bones.
Yeah, but what about the brain?
It's crucial for brain health and development, too. Research shows that vitamin D might even play a role in protecting against cognitive decline.
Another one for the list. This is making me realize how closely linked our physical and mental well-being are.
It all works together. What you eat, how much you sleep, how you manage stress, they all directly impact your brain health.
Okay, so we've covered exercise, sleep, and diet. Let's talk more about those targeted memory techniques like mnemonics and visualization. Are we basically tricking the brain into remembering things better?
Think of it more like organizing information so your brain can access it easier. It's all about creating a system that works.
Like a mental filing system.
Exactly. For example, using an acronym like HOMES to remember the Great Lakes.
Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior.
Right. You're essentially creating a mental shortcut. Instead of remembering 5 separate words, you're just remembering one.
So it's a shortcut, like a cheat code for my brain.
You could say that. And visualization techniques take this a step further by bringing in more of your senses and emotions. It's not just dry facts. It's vivid pictures and stories.
Okay, so we're tapping into more than just our logical brain. We're using our imagination and creativity, too. What about that memory palace technique? How does that work?
Imagine your home, or any place you know really well, as your memory palace. Let's say you're trying to memorize a presentation.
Okay, so I'm giving a presentation.
You could mentally walk through your home, placing each key point in a different room. The introduction in your entryway, the first point in your living room, the second point in the kitchen, and so on.
So each room becomes a trigger for a specific piece of information.
Exactly. The familiar environment helps you remember the order of the information, too. It's like a mental map for your presentation.
That's brilliant. I'm definitely trying that one. Okay, back to stress for a minute. We talked about how chronic stress can harm the hippocampus.
Right. Those high levels of cortisol for extended periods are no good.
But what's happening at the cellular level? How exactly does cortisol damage brain cells?
It interferes with neurogenesis, which is the process of creating new neurons in the hippocampus.
So fewer new brain cells being created.
Unfortunately, it also messes with synaptic plasticity.
Synaptic plasticity.
Yeah, it's your brain's ability to strengthen or weaken those connections between neurons, which is essential for learning and memory.
Right, those connections are important.
And on top of that, chronic stress increases inflammation in the brain, more damage to those precious brain cells.
So stress basically throws a wrench in the entire system, makes managing stress all the more important.
It really does. Now, what about social engagement? Remember, we talked about it being a mental workout, but what's going on at the cellular level during those interactions?
Fill me up.
When we're having conversations, interpreting social cues, navigating those complex social situations, it's like a full brain workout. We're using all sorts of brain areas, language processing, emotional regulation, memory, even decision-making.
So being social really does keep our brains firing on all cylinders.
Right. And remember, studies show that those who are more socially engaged tend to have a lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia.
It's amazing how something as simple as connecting with others can have such a big impact on our brain health.
It really is. Okay, shifting gears again, how about focus? With all the distractions we face every day, how is our brain affected at the cellular level?
Yeah, it feels impossible to focus sometimes.
Well, remember, our brains are always on the lookout for something new and different. It's instinctual.
Right, like a built-in radar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today, we're bombarded with information, most of it not even important. This overloads our brains. It can lead to mental fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and those memory problems we discussed.
So our poor brains are just exhausted.
Basically, it's like trying to do a million things at once. You're not really focusing on any one thing properly.
So what can we do about it? Just try harder to focus.
Willpower helps, but there are also techniques you can use to train your brain to be more focused. Remember mindfulness practices, like meditation.
Yeah, that attention muscle.
Exactly. Those can help tremendously. And try creating an environment that supports focus. Turn off notifications, find a quiet workspace, and schedule dedicated time for focused work.
So simple, but so important. I need to be more mindful of my surroundings. Okay, let's talk about spaced repetition. We talked about it before, but I'm curious to hear more about the science behind it. What's going on in our brains when we use this technique?
Well, remember the forgetting curve. We naturally forget things over time.
Right, but each time we review something, we remember it a bit longer.
Exactly. When you learn something new, your brain forms connections between neurons. Those connections are weak at first, but they get stronger as you revisit the information.
So we're literally strengthening those connections each time we review something.
You got it. And with spaced repetition, you're timing those reviews strategically. So you're reinforcing the connections right when they're about to weaken.
It's like we're reminding our brains right before they forget.
Exactly. And this makes the memory more durable. Plus, it's super efficient. You're maximizing learning with minimal effort.
I'm convinced I need to use this technique more often. Okay, finally, let's talk about novelty and curiosity. How does our brain's love for new things translate into better memory at the cellular level?
When we encounter something new and intriguing, our brains release dopamine.
Dopamine. Isn't that the feel-good chemical?
You got it. And this dopamine surge helps solidify the memory, making it more likely you'll remember that information later on.
So it's like our brains are saying, hey, this is important, let's remember this.
Exactly. It's all about keeping your brain engaged and interested.
I'm definitely going to try and bring more novelty and curiosity into my life. This has been such a fascinating exploration of how our brains work. Can you give a quick recap of how all these techniques actually work at the cellular level?
It's all about creating the best possible environment for your brain cells to thrive. Give them the nutrients they need through a healthy diet, make sure they get enough rest, and keep challenging them with new experiences.
It's about understanding that our physical and mental health are intertwined.
Precisely. And the more you learn about your brain, the more you can take control of your cognitive health and unlock your full potential.
I love that. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, any final words of wisdom to keep our listeners motivated on their journey to better brain power?
Remember that your brain is constantly evolving. It's never too late to learn and grow. Embrace a growth mindset, experiment with these techniques, and most importantly, never stop being curious.
I love that. Small steps, consistency, and a curious mind. You know, it's amazing how many of these memory techniques we've talked about really come down to the brain's ability to change.
Right. It's like we've been focusing on strengthening a muscle this whole time, but it's actually our brain getting the workout.
It's incredible. And speaking of that muscle, you mentioned it before, neuroplasticity. Can you remind me what that means exactly?
Neuroplasticity is your brain's superpower. It's the ability to rewire and reshape itself throughout your life.
So that's what lets us learn new things, adapt to new situations, even bounce back from injuries.
Exactly. It's happening all the time. Every time you learn something new, practice a skill, even just think a thought, you're creating and strengthening connections in your brain.
So we're not just maintaining our brains, we're actually helping them grow.
Yes. And the more we understand about neuroplasticity, the more we realize we have the power to shape our brains through our experiences, habits, and mental practices. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. So how do we use this superpower, this neuroplasticity, to improve our memory specifically?
By challenging our brains. Push them beyond their comfort zone.
So like how?
Learn a new language, pick up a musical instrument, take on a challenging hobby.
Okay, so new things, new challenges.
Right. Or even just have those thought-provoking conversations. Do activities that make you think in different ways. Keep your brain active and engaged.
It's like cross-training for the brain. Makes sense. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what are some of the biggest myths about memory? Like, is it true that memory decline is inevitable as we age?
That's a common one, but it's not entirely true. While some age-related changes are normal, research actually shows that we can stay sharp well into our later years.
So it's not about stopping memory decline completely, it's about slowing it down.
Exactly. Think of it like any other aspect of health. You can't stop time, but you can make choices to age gracefully and maintain your vitality.
Makes sense. What about the idea that some people are just born with good memories? Like, are we just stuck with what we've got?
Well, genetics do play a role, but memory is a skill. It can be improved with practice just like anything else.
So anyone can improve their memory?
Absolutely. And all the techniques we've talked about today are a great starting point. The key is to find what works best for you and your lifestyle.
It's been an incredible journey exploring the world of memory with you. We've learned so much about how our brains work and how to keep them sharp. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap things up?
Think of your memory as a gift. It's what connects us to our past, helps us navigate the present, and lets us imagine the future. So cherish it, nurture it, and never stop learning.
Beautiful. And remember, everyone, even small changes can add up to big improvements over time. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those brains sharp.
Until next time, stay curious.